Dobar dan svima, ja sam Gianmarco Ćurčić-Baldini, zahvaljujem se na odvojenom vremenu i najavljujem tjedan SCIA ili kako bi se po naški reklo Week of SCIA. Pripremili smo za vas jako lijepe prezentacije, puno zanimljivih govornika i siguran sam da će svako pronaći nešto za sebe i evo u ovom trenutku zapravo najavljujem jedan moj mali uvod, čisto da vidimo gdje je SCIA. Trenutno što se Baldini studija tiče i ovih naših prostora, neke možda novitete na koje niste obratili pažnju. Nakon toga ide Thibaut, naš kolega direktno iz SCIA, naš prvi čovjek za suradnju u SCIA, da kaže nešto više o SCIA iz svog kuta gledišta sa strane gledanja SCIA. Nakon toga predstavljamo novo sučelje, mnogi ste već upoznati sa njime, ali u verziji 21 prošle godine je došlo potpuno redizajnirano novo sučelje SCIA, koje je zaista puno jednostavnije za učenje i puno brže zapravo za dnevni rad. To je za danas, a onda ćemo vidjeti i ostale najave za sutra, prekosutra i tako do petka. Imamo zaista puno zanimljivih sugovornika. Da ne duljim, da ne kradem ja svoje vrijeme, htio bih vam napomenuti da smo u Baldini studiju uz pomoć SCIA, ali i ostalih softvera zapravo pokrili kompletan redoslijed projektiranja od prve arhitektonske skice preko idejnih glavnih izvedbenih projekata arhitekture, renderinga u Lumionu, preko konstrukterstva, dakle tu opet pokrivene su sve discipline, prvenstveno zahvaljujući SCIA, ali ih nadopunjujemo onda još i te mogućnosti SCIA i sa ideom statikom i sa softverima kao što su Geo5, kao što je Parabuild za crtanje radioničnih nacrta. Čini mi se puno jednostavnije rješenje od nekih velikih konkurenata i vrlo prilagođeno i što se cijene tiče i što se zapravo sučelja tiče i automatizama koje ima u sebi. I naravno strojare ne smijemo zaboraviti, oni su dosta značajni, pogotovo u svojoj interakciji sa konstrukcijom. Otvori za ventilacije su ponekad dosta veliki, ponekad im smetaju grede koje konstrukteri jednostavno zahtijevaju, pa onda i njih uključimo u cijeli taj naš proces rada. Bijela ploča počinje sa zapravo arhitekturom, ajmo tako reći. Svi arhitekti, arhitektonski biroji, projektanti arhitekture, zapravo od njih priča počinje jer najčešće oni dolaze u kontakt sa investitorima i ovo su nekako 3 najrasprostranjenije platforme što se tiče projektiranja u arhitekturi i naravno svi oni imaju vezu na ovaj ili onaj način sa SCIA inženirom. Alplan naravno ima i dvostranu vezu, dakle sve ono što napravimo u SCIA može na kraju završiti i u Alplanu. Posredno može završiti i u Archicadu i u Revitu, ali sasvim sigurno Alplan ima jaču vezu sa SCIA-om. SCIA opet na sebe veže neke druge aplikacije kao što su ideja statika za proračun spojeva ili čak membera pojedinačnih što je došlo u novoj verziji. Pa je tu naravno i sprega sa Alplan Engineeringom gdje vi možete dio armature izraditi već u samoj SCIA i poslati ju u Alplan Engineering za detaljiranje, za opisivanje, za iskazivanje količina, smještavanje na papir i tako dalje. Ali recimo razne grede, stupove i ostalo možete armirati već u samoj SCIA, provjeriti iskoristivost armature i tako dalje, da niste odabrali nešto što je previše eventualno. Tu je naravno i Geo5, pa recimo sprega SCIA i Geo5 za temeljenje također postoji. Vidimo da je zapravo SCIA centralni, jedan centar zbivanja oko povezivanja i arhitekture i ostalih struka i izvedbenih projekata i građevine i arhitekture i planova oplate, planova armature. I SCIA, moram se pohvaliti, nam je uz Alplan jedan od najbrže rastućih softvera prema broju licenci i još jednom se zahvaljujem svim našim kupcima. Dakle, SCIA obuhvaća i integrira cijelu priču i naravno tu je BIM Plus platforma zajedno sa SCIA autokonverterom koji je na toj BIM Plus platformi zapravo kao jedan dodatni softver koji nam omogućava opet da bilo koji od ova 3 softvera iskoristimo arhitekturu nastalu, 3D model nastao u ta 3 softvera i vrlo jednostavno zapravo pretvorimo tu 3D arhitekt-uru u analitički model koji SCIA treba za daljnje proračune. Nešto više o tome kasnije, ali BIM Plus kao takav, kao jedan repozitorij 3D elemenata koji na cloudu omogućuje svima vama da radite bez obzira da li ste korisnik Alplana, SCIA ili niste, uvijek možete dobiti pristup takvom jednom portalu. Čak i ljudi sa gradilišta mogu komentirati da im nešto nedostaje, da im nešto nije jasno i tako dalje. Na stvarnom 3D modelu treba vam samo internet preglednik i naravno internet veza. BIM Plus je integriran i u Alplan i u SCIA-u, tako da pod uvjetom da na gradilištu na koordinaciji se odlučimo komentirati i zatražiti neku promjenu na 3D modelu, moguće je kliknuti na element kojeg želimo mijenjati i dodati mu neki komentar. Istog časa projektanti u Alplanu i u SCIA unutar svojih softvera dobivaju kao jedan chat, jedan prozor, jednu notifikaciju da je na određenom elementu došlo do promjene, da se promjena zahtijeva ili da postoji neki komentar. Tako da istog časa projektant u uredu dobije obavijest o tome da je nešto dogovoreno na gradilištu vezano za taj element, za izmjene koje su potrebne napraviti. I naravno sljedivost tih informacija, sljedivost tih naloga je dosta bitna, jer kad dođe do obračuna onda zaista želimo znati ko je kome kada što rekao. Tu postoji naravno i Bluebeam Review platforma koja objedinjuje isto tako kolanje dokumentacije, ali više bazirana na fajlovima, na strukturi fajlova, na repozitoriju fajlova i na komentiranju i automatskoj dostavi projektne dokumentacije, dakle prvenstveno PDF-ova koji se onda šalju na svim zainteresiranim stranama. Svi možete komentirati, isto tako postoji cloud varijanta gdje onda se svi ti komentari bilježe, možete odgovoriti na tuđi komentar i tako dalje. Dakle, sve što se dešava na projektnoj dokumentaciji može biti, a ne mora, ali može biti na cloudu dostupno svima koji su zainteresirani. Ok. Još kratko samo, BIM Plus, dakle platforma, je platforma koju svi korisnici Alplana i oni koji su zapravo SSA korisnici, dakle koji imaju potpisano održavanje, imaju BIM Plus Professional platformu zajedno sa SCIA autokonverterom gore, a svi ostali koji možda niste još korisnici niti jednog od naših softvera ili nemate potpisane ugovore o održavanju, imate BIM Plus, ajmo reći light platformu, standard platformu, koja onda ne sadrži neke od glavnih dijelova kao što je spajanje sa Microsoft Projectom radi vremenskog planiranja ili već spomenuti SCIA autokonverter. Više o tome možete pogledati na našem webinaru od, htio sam reći prošle, ali već pretprošle godine. Dakle, rješenje koje dosta dugo postoji na tržištu i savjetujemo, odvojite malo vremena. Što se tiče SCIA autokonvertera, to sam već rekao, dakle, ideja je između ova strelica crvena na sredini, ideja je da vezujemo što je god moguće u realnom vremenu promjene koje se dešavaju na arhitekturi, odnosno 3D modelu iz bilo kojeg razloga, da li je to već spomenuti kanal ventilacije koji je sad morao proći kroz neku gredu ili kroz neki zid, ili je jednostavno arhitektura izmijenjena. Mi kroz BIM Plus platformu na kojoj leži i SCIA autokonverter možemo inicijalno konvertirati vrlo brzo, vrlo jednostavno 3D model arhitekture u statički model. Dakle, jako brzo ćemo doći do ispravnog modela u SCIA i dalje raditi naravno statičke proračune. I isto tako imamo vrlo jaku i jasnu kontrolu nad budućim promjenama gdje se onda sve buduće promjene mogu vizualizirati, prihvatiti, odbaciti. Ako ih prihvatimo, onda nam se iz SCIA model automatski ažurira i zapravo imamo tu sljedivost podataka o kojoj se govorilo. Više o tome, ako se ne varam, u petak imamo kompletan jedan kratki dio za SCIA autokonverter. SCIA autokonverter, dakle ovo je jedan graf, samo ulazni softveri svih mogućih vrsta i varijanti. Spajanje Alplan i SCIA se naravno spajaju direktno, dok drugi softveri se mogu spajati putem API-a, putem raznih drugih file formata kao što je IFC, LandXML i ostalo. Revit također ima plugin za prebacivanje projekata na BIM Plus platformu. I onda nama je najzanimljivije to što taj autokonvertirani model završi u SCIA, ali isto tako postoje i razni drugi proizvođači softvera, čak i konkurenti koji podržavaju taj file format. Ono na što smo zaista jako ponosni je naša learnbim.net platforma koju smo razvili u zadnjih godina, koju zapravo unapređujemo konstantno i stvaramo repozitorij materijala za učenje, prvenstveno video tutoriala za učenje, vrlo kratkih, da možete vrlo brzo naći ono što vam treba, ali zato ih ima jako puno. To je i sredstvo za inicijalno učenje, ali isto tako i mjesto gdje se možete prisjetiti kako se radi nešto što ste možda zaboravili, nešto što ne koristite često. Naravno da BIM ne bi bio do kraja obuhvaćen bez kursa, odnosno certifikacije. Naša tvrtka je odnedavno, pa ima tome već godinu dana, postala licencirani, kako da kažem, provider, pružatelj tečajeva za certificiranje prema Building Smart protokolu. Dakle, Building Smart je krovna organizacija koja se bavi razvojem BIM-a, razvojem BIM tehnologija, razvojem budućih BIM standarda i onda europske norme, ISO norme su zapravo prihvatile i zajedno sa Building Smartom razrađuju, dorađuju i objavljuju norme. Hrvatska je prihvatila BIM norme koje su izašle, BIM standarde, i tim više ovaj tečaj zapravo međunarodno priznati, na cijeloj planeti priznati tečaj krovne organizacije koja se bavi BIM-om. Open source, dakle organizacija nije Building Smart vezana ni za koji software, pa tako ni za Nemetschek. Međutim, tvrtke tipa Nemetschek, Alplan, Archicad, Revit i mnogi drugi participiraju i dogovaraju se upravo na Building Smart platformi. Ako prođete naš kurs koji je dizajniran tako da traje 3-4 dana, ovisno o broju sati, recimo 3 sata dnevno, 4 dana, vi ste u stanju položiti ispit koji se polaže online direktno od strane Building Smarta. Dakle, Building Smart provodi certificiranje, odnosno ispitivanje, online ispitivanje, i dobivate ovakvu jednu onda diplomu, certifikat koji vam služi na cijeloj zemaljskoj kugli, kojim možete dokazati vašu spremnost za BIM. Trenutno je to jedini certifikat za BIM u toj organizaciji. Slijede i novi, mi ćemo ih sasvim sigurno popratiti, koji će biti više na praktičnoj bazi. Ovo je kompletna teorija što se BIM-a tiče. Ok, to je bilo zapravo sve od mene i ja se nadam da sam vas zaintrigirao da ostanete i do kraja cijelog tjedna. Odvojite tih sat, 2 vremena. Siguran sam da će vam naši sugovornici, prezentatori, projektanti biti od velike pomoći u vašem promišljanju kako naprijed sa BIM-om. Sigurno ćete naučiti nešto od njih, dobiti možda neku ideju kako se rješava određeni problem. I u svakom slučaju tu smo da se družimo, kolege smo, prema tome da pomognemo jednim drugima. Hvala puno i sad molim Tiboa da preuzme riječ od strane SCIA. Hvala lijepo.
Hello everybody and welcome to this session. I'm Thibaut Gouzy. I'm working at SCIA for 5 years now and I've held several positions within the company. Today I'm indirect sales manager, which means I'm responsible for the coordination of all SCIA partners and all the markets where we are present indirectly. So, for example, we are trusting Baldini Studio to represent SCIA within the Balkan region. And so far they are doing an excellent job. First of all, I would like to thank you all for being present today and for your interest in our solutions. And on behalf of SCIA, I wish you an excellent week of SCIA. To start, let's have a retrospective look over 2021 and the innovation we brought on the market. So, 2021 was about resilience. Indeed, in a very complex environment with COVID, financial environment which was really unfavorable, we all had to adapt and find resources to maintain our activities and to continue to do business, and in our case to support our cherished customers. Having a retrospective view, we managed to go through it with a relative success. So indeed, we are still the #1 structural design solution in Europe, and we gained some users during the year as 440 new companies joined the ranks of SCIA users in 2021 to bring the total number of active users to 8,300, which is a great achievement. So as you can see, SCIA is in a very good shape and it is promising for the future, so we can continue providing you with high-end quality solutions and continue to innovate and shape the future of structural design. Speaking about it, innovation is in SCIA's DNA. We have always refused the status quo, and we always gave our best to set the structural designer in the best conditions. We were the first to support built-in Eurocode checks in 2005, and a couple of years later we also were the first to implement the BIM toolbox, which made the BIM workflow available for all structural designers. It was really mind-blowing at that time because no other program was able to bring some that kind of solution. With the growing ground of BIM in the industry, we continue in that direction, and we were also the first structural design software to be certificated by IFC, by Building Smart, in the IFC 2x3 norms, which was a great achievement and which is still the case today. On another hand, in 2018, we finally unveiled our the solution that came up from a partnership that we started with Beckhardt, the concrete making company, to be able to provide the capacity to structural designers to design structures in steel fiber reinforced concrete. And more lately, we finally built the SAF format, so we developed this new format based on Excel from scratch to cope with the challenges of BIM that were not handled by the IFC format, which is a text-based format and wasn't engineer-oriented, let's say. So we will be speaking more about that later in the presentation, but this has been a great achievement, and it's gaining ground today within the industry. And 2021 has been no exception in the innovation. Indeed, despite bad timing, we successfully managed to launch our V21, which is powered with the new general user interface. So we had very hard times in 2020 and 2021 developing this completely new general user interface, and it implied some delay in the development, etc. But we finally could meet the deadline, and we delivered in June a full version with this new general interface. So in case you're still not familiar with it, let's just have a look at a short video explaining in detail why this version is really innovative.
SCIA Engineer 21, super powered, super easy. SCIA Engineer 21 has been redefined, reimagined, and revolutionized. It's a giant leap in structural engineering software design. Let's have a look at some of the extraordinary advances. Rather than having fixed menus crammed with hundreds of functions, the project takes center stage with a search facility and customizable toolbars, keeping the workspace clean and uncluttered, bringing huge efficiency gains. Mouse miles and clicks are reduced by 20%, saving you up to an hour every single day. You'll love working at full screen. You can concentrate on the model and see the detail with less zooming. You'll see your productivity soar. SCIA Spotlight is a game-changing innovation that puts a smart search facility at the heart of the interface. Find tools and functions instantly and never get lost in the software, making it easier to use and learn. It's so much faster to use SCIA Spotlight than to browse through menus. The structural engineering workflow is often not a linear one. Our Smart Process Toolbar allows you to have 2 workflow toolbars open at any one time and move seamlessly between the two. For example, results plus code checks, or loading plus geometry. It's ideal for an iterative process. The interface can be easily customized to suit the way you work as you go. You can drag and drop functions on and off the toolbar and assign single-letter shortcuts for favorite commands, giving your productivity an even greater boost. SCIA Engineer 21 allows for easy, direct selection of entities based on multiple criteria. It's a great time-saving feature. For example, to select beams and edit all the associated hinges, you can now easily do that and more. Getting started with SCIA Engineer 21 has never been easier. You'll quickly find your way around with the new intuitive interface, smart toolbars, SCIA Spotlight and built-in guides. You'll learn it in 75% less time. Welcome to the future. SCIA Engineer 21. Super powered, super easy.
So, of course, if you're not familiar with it and you've never tried it, you can go on the web page and have a try to this really mind-blowing new version. So we all know those proverbs like Rome wasn't built in a day, or we don't make omelets without breaking eggs. And they are particularly relevant in that context. Indeed, change is always a fray, or at least implies some resistance at the beginning, and many users have had a bad first reaction when we presented the new general user interface. However, after some months, feedbacks are incredibly positive. 96% of the users are really positive and happy with the new interface. And they are speaking about efficiency, time gain, less clicks, having fun using the software. So it is really pleasant to see those reactions. After all, I would say that it is normal, because we were just following our customers' feedback and advices when we developed that version. But it is always pleasant to to see the results confirming that we have made the right move when we decided to go into that direction. 2021 has also been the confirmation year for Autoconverter. So we launched this solution in 2020 and it's been technical success based on the SAF format, but it's been also a commercial challenge with only 17 licenses sold on the first year, which was very under the expectations. But now SCIA Autoconverter is gaining ground. People are understanding what it is, how it works. We got the first feedbacks that are very good, and actually many companies are joining the movement, and among them major players like Vinci or Brig or B6 are using it to automate the import process and to reduce the risks of error and to improve their quality. So yeah, it's becoming more and more common within the industry, and we are of course happy for that. So we went from 17 to 75 licenses at the end of 2021, and now new companies are still joining the movement, as 20 new seats have been delivered so far in 2022, which already sets us on a growing trend. So let's have a look at SCIA Autoconverter if you aren't familiar with this solution. And here is a quick visual explanation of how it works.
SCIA Autoconverter revolutionizes the structural engineering process. It's not just a step forward, but a giant leap. We are elevating the open BIM process to the next level, bringing structural engineers and modelers together in an easy-to-use BIM workflow. With SCIA Autoconverter, you can automatically convert any 3D structural model from any CAD software into a high-quality and accurate analysis model. Believe us, this is a game changer, saving you at least 30% of analysis time. SCIA Autoconverter automates the conversion from structural to analysis model, so there's no need for remodeling or re-entering data. Tedious tasks that previously might have taken days can be done in a fraction of the time, leaving you free to do what you do best. SCIA Autoconverter gives you full control of the analysis model. Using a simple workflow, you can quickly check and validate, and in no time, produce an analysis model that you have full confidence in. No more frustration of incomplete data. With SCIA Autoconverter, collaboration between different disciplines is made easy. Revision management is built into the software, so changes are easily tracked and automated. Changes made by you to the analysis model are identified in the structural model, and when the modeler makes revisions, these automatically update in your analysis model without a loss of data, greatly reducing the time spent and the risk of errors. The analysis model is stored and shared in the cloud, so anyone in the project team can access it at any time, anywhere. It's a truly global collaboration platform, allowing modelers to model and engineers to engineer. Save time through automation, gain more control, collaborate better with other disciplines, and take your BIM workflow to the next level. SCIA Autoconverter. True automation, from structural to analysis model.
So, in case you have implemented BIM in your workflow, I really suggest that you try it if you haven't done yet. It's a really really efficient tool. We got excellent returns, but our community is full of ideas and we listen to those creative minds, so we actually won't stop there, and we are moving forward with the autoconverter with new functionalities. So in the last version, alignment parameters are now available. We also have the possibility to do group alignment, to define some personalized sections, and also new APIs are available as more and more companies are developing SAF compatibility, and as SCIA autoconverter is becoming more and more common within the industry. So actually all of that makes it more and more efficient and more relevant for all the companies that are using BIM workflows. But autoconverter won't be the only product to benefit from updating new features, of course. So SCIA Engineer will also continue its evolution toward a better tool with improved technology. Technologies evolved really fast nowadays, and the technological edge that we had by the past is now less and less visible. Indeed, advanced coding and high-performance computers are now available to everybody. Our features and our team are still differentiating us from the competition, but the purely technological difference is getting thinner and thinner. And at SCIA, we want our users to have the best tools in hand, and it passes by an excellent technological architecture. A nice quote says, "Don't be a prisoner of your past, be the architect of your future." And it is clearly the attitude that we decided to take, facing our legacy code, which was outdated, though still supporting the solution. So we started a huge change in the back end of SCIA Engineer a couple of years ago by completely rewriting the code of the program and passing it from 32-bit to 64-bit. And we are finally getting to an end of that process, which will unify again all the functionalities in one interface and one single post-processing environment. So V22 will mark the end of the differentiation between 32 and 64-bit versions, the end of old and new interface, and the end of two post-processing environments. So of course, for some specific cases, that will be still available, but you won't be bound to use it to find a functionality. All the functionalities will be available within 64-bit and within the new post-processing environment and within the new user interface. And of course, we will also add new ergonomic features such as 3D scene improvement to have a better view of your model, custom tags and favorites to add some tags and to organize all the elements of the model in a way you can find them really quickly. We also improved the scales handling of the model, so you have a more realistic model, and also other functionalities like multi-select picker, etc. So there won't be major new technical functionalities, but a full complete version with a brand new backend architecture to be able to develop faster and deliver more value in the years to come. That is a new phase in the history of SCIA Engineer, and we are really excited to build this chapter together with you. I hope this quick presentation gave you a better understanding of SCIA vision and direction. Do not hesitate to get in touch with Baldini Studio representatives or with me directly if you have any question. I wish you again an excellent week of SCIA and a lot of success in your structural design activities, and thank you very much.
Hello everyone, good afternoon and welcome to the webinar dedicated to SCIA Engineer version 21, which has brand new user interface. And my name is Vladimir and I will be your guide in this webinar. Let's sort out just some practical things. During the webinars, you are muted, so you cannot ask directly questions, but still I encourage you all to use the questions box to ask questions during the presentation. My colleague Keith is here with me and he will be responding to these questions, and some of them I will also answer at the end of the webinar. Also, please be aware that this webinar is recorded and we are going to post it on our SCIA YouTube channel for any later view or to be able to share it with someone else. So what are going to be contents of this webinar? First, I will make some short introduction and key benefits of the new user interface of SCIA Engineer version 21. I will do the overview of the environment and its separate components, and the separate components I will actually show you in the live demo. And as I mentioned at the end, there will be a Q&A session where we will discuss topics that you are interested in. So let me start with some look into the history and how the time went with SCIA Engineer. So SCIA Engineer in forms of SCIA ESA PT was released in 2006, and the user interface looked like this. Later on, and that was the first Windows distribution, basically. Later on, the SCIA Engineer was developed further into version 2020, which is the last version without the new user interface. And you can see that, of course, here the print screen is a bit nicer because the screen resolution was also bigger, but you can actually see that the environment was untouched in most of the aspects, and this is what we have prepared for version 21. So you can see that the user interface was really revolutionized and reimagined to be quite different, but the power hidden within actually remains. And in this webinar, I will show you all the aspects and tips in this new environment of SCIA Engineer version 21. Let me first start with why we actually wanted to do a new interface, a new user environment. And we did that basically to tackle several of the pain points that we heard from our users and customers or learned by observing them. First pain that we actually try to overcome by the new user interface is actually the restriction in the working space. The space in the old environment was occupied by different menus, panels, toolbars, and we held investigation, and actually most or approximately half of these are rarely used or not even used at all. So we did something about it in the new interface. Also, we learned that every user is different based on different domain of expertise. Tools needed by a steel user is different than what the designer for the concrete structures need. And the old UI had some customizations, but it was limited and not intuitive or nor ergonomic. So basically many people went just on with the user interface as it was without actually customizing it, but having the environment cluttered by even things that they don't need. We also learned that performing some frequent actions in some cases take a little bit more time than would be possible, And finding rarely used functions is time consuming. So I believe that you will find what we prepared for you, that we are actually tackling these two, and this will allow you to have better productivity while using SCIA Engineer, and that was our aim. Also, one of the last pain points that I want to highlight is that the old UI was often referred to be complicated, inconsistent, and of course that makes it difficult to learn. The learnability curve is not smooth. The users need a long demo or training to actually get fully efficient in the user interface. Let me now focus on some of the separate pain points. And let me start with the comparison of the working space. You can see that in the old environment that I have here, approximately 58% is used for the actual model, for the 3D scene and its components, while in the new user interface, this is increased. The increase is apparent at the first glimpse, and it's approximately by 50% from the original model size. And actually the benefit here is that seeing more of the model actually leads to less necessity of zooming, because some things are just better visible. It actually, and now I'm maybe being subjective, but it's nicer and feels certainly more modern. And also at the same time, all the features are still there and accessible as they were, yet in a maybe some adjusted way. We also make a big step in investigation and research about the actual ergonomic of use of SCIA Engineer. We did some recordings with multiple people, also amongst our user base, and we did comparison of actually performing day-to-day actions, whether those are tasks regarding modeling. Here you can see some comparison of creating the structure like this, where the users actually click, and or working with results and checks. And we observed that overall there is approximately 15% of the time saved, but also approximately the same amount of saved clicks. So I believe that in the new environment you are going to be allowed to work faster, and as we say, 15% save is 1 hour every day. So I will also show you some tips how to actually achieve that. And also we manage that by increasing the efficiency of specific workflows by approximately 2 to 8 times. And the most important ones I'm going to show you live in the SCIA Engineer. So how does the interface look like, and what are the basic components of the interface? So here, yeah, you can see that there is quite few things opened here. That's not the regular look, but I made it this way to actually show you what we have. So on the top left, there is the main menu, which hosts most of the commands and in a structured way. We also have a component called SCIA Spotlight, which is something between search bar and command bar, with some advanced capabilities like autofill of search, like you can use with Google search. This works quite in a similar mechanic. We have the status bar for some of the most important things that require often access. Then we have the properties panel. This one is very similar to what you would expect from the properties. It's very similar to what we had in the old environment, but with some advanced features that I'm going to talk about later. We have the Navicube for navigation, if navigation by mouse and hotkey is not possible. And we have also some view bar commands to quickly change the most used aspects of how the project looks like from the visual perspective. We also have the input panel, which is basically a set of toolbars that allow you to input anything that is actually an object or element in the project. And we have also a different kind of toolbar, which is called the Process Toolbar. The Process Toolbar serves a bit different purpose. It hosts most of the commands that are of a modification group or libraries, and also results and checks. And I'm going to show this to you in more depth in just in a few minutes. We also have the context menu, which works actually the same or similar way as before. Those are just some handy, most used commands that can be used anytime while right-clicking in the 3D scene. And the last but not least, we have the inbuilt tutorials. And why these are important, I will basically start with this, because this is the key how to get quite proficient in the new and familiar with the new interface when you start using it. So let me now stop the presentation for a while. Also, please be aware that in the GoToWebinar, there is a section handouts. I shared my presentation there with you, so you can download this presentation, because there are some summary slides at the end for each component that I will show you live. But if you shall ever need or want to have a look at this, this is at your disposal. Let's now have a look at the user interface of SCIA Engineer live. So I have here a project opened, and you can see that I can that looks in very similar way as in my print screens. Important aspect is the onboarding and tutorials in general. This is something that we made sure that it's as much in your face as you start the SCIA Engineer for the first time. And when you start SCIA Engineer for the first time, the onboarding tutorial will start. You can always run it again via this help menu. So let me do that just now. The onboarding is actually an inbuilt way how to learn things. And you can see that multiple things happens here. First, a predefined project is started and a set of different panels are shown. Each panel contains some description, some animation to show you what is possible. So yeah, I can actually follow the tutorial. Now it tells me that here I actually can use some filters. I will get to details later. And it also shows me that I can start actually with some basic navigation. So you can see that different objects can be anchored or docked or just moved within the environment just by dragging them and placing wherever you would like. There is also one other aspect of the components, because we really want to maximize the space, but we also know that having the properties and having the toolbars visible is important. There is one feature that I would highlight from the beginning, and that's we also support like quick minimization of the components. Just like that, you just click on them and they are either visible or not. In the past, this was linked with some performance issues, but now we really make it work in a very smooth way. So that's the proposed. Well, if that's something that you like, be sure to discover these possibilities. The onboarding goes on, and it actually asks you to in an interactive way to really do things that you are asked here to do to learn the most basic features that are here. So for example, here it asks me to actually create. Okay, here I'm asked to create some columns because of course in the structure that I have here, they are missing, and I can do that. Okay, this is now blocking my view, so I just minimize it, and you can see that by actually seeing the script of the tutorial, I'm able to very quickly get along with multiple aspects. The tutorial now is continuing. There is and this one is 22 different actions or areas tackled, but I will not get into more depth here because I will show them to you live. So I will just close this tutorial and continue. Besides the tutorial, there are also the basic tutorial. There are also tutorials for steel and concrete, and we also are counting on actually extending these features as much as we will be able to provide different onboarding and different tutorials, because we also feel that that the actual onboarding in this manner is way more intuitive and easy to follow than like following 80 pages of PDF tutorial and stuff like that. So let me now get to more details because I am going to go, let's say, one by one in terms as I showed you. So here, this is the menu. The GoToWebinar actually is blocking me here a bit, so let's move it. And the menu actually contains a lot of different commands, as you would expect from areas like file, different editing functions, tools, results and checks, setting of different view parameters, and also having a possibility to change the overall behavior or some global settings of the interface. There are also some libraries and help. I don't maybe need to go into more details here. The interesting part about the new interface that is the on-the-go customizability. What does it mean? It actually means that if there are some commands that that you like or that you want to use often, you don't have to go over to the menu to find them, because you can just take any command from here, and if I want to have it on my toolbar, I just place it here, and here it is. If I'm not happy with any of the toolbars, I just remove them. Just dragging and dropping things, and the actions are instant. Furthermore, what's possible with the menu is, of course, you can see that we propagate the hotkeys. Of course, you can use the hotkeys like Control X or Control C to move. However, you are able just to click here, hit M, and now the M is the hotkey for mirror. We actually looked at some of the leading softwares for structural engineering, and actually single letter hotkeys are something that we found pretty cool, so we built it in. So now if I just hit M, you can see that the mirror function is available or is launched right away, and I just hit M, right? That's very simple. Similarly to menu, we have also here the SCIA Spotlight, which is as I mentioned, the search or command line. And let me just show you how it works, because for example, I want to add hinged support. I don't know where it is. I just write hinge. You can first see that there is some autofill happening. So only by writing a portion of the keyword, this already gets autofilled. Now, if I would hit enter, the first one in the line would get executed. You will see that the hinged support that I looked for is here, but these commands here are actually sorted by in some order of relevance rather than alphabetically. And because we observed and we knew which commands are used the most. So for example, if I write here like 2D, you can see that the plate is going to be first, then wall, then some results, and then some other things, including the surface load. So whenever you are lost, or whenever you are actually lazy to try to find a command in the menu or elsewhere, you can just write as little as 2 letters, and there you are. If you are not familiar with some of the commands, you can quickly go to web help directly from here, or you can also use the show me function if you, for whatever reason, would like to see where such command is actually located in the menu. Let's say like divide surface. Okay, if I just click on on Show Me, in the menu, it will highlight for me this command. So yeah, I can maybe move it to the toolbar, or I can do that actually right from here. So I can move it on toolbar, and here it is. If you like this command, you can place it to your toolbar right like that. You can not only place the commands like one next to each other, but there is also possibility of stacking them. Yeah, there are some similar commands. Here, for example, I have mirror and rotate. I also think that the join and divide surface are sort of similar commands. So I can just move one on top of the other, and then I have both of them here. Of course, I can reorder them so they are maybe last in my editing functions. So all these options are possible, and the same or very similar to the menu. If I, for example, want hotkey B for beam, I just click here, write B, and B is my new hotkey. Next component that I would like to talk about is the input panel. And the input panel is available to actually do different kinds of things. In the basic view, you can see that we actually have here filter by tag, and we show something that is a set of the most used commands. So you can see that there is not many of them, but in this layout, you can actually see the most used structural objects, most used boundary conditions, but also loads or results related objects. So that's the basic modeling. Besides the basic modeling, this input panel actually follows very similar the tree behavior. So we have call it the workstations, but you can see that you can navigate from structure, going to loads, then maybe setting some dynamics and settings for calculation, and then later on going for results and check. So this actually follows the logic of the workflow of a structure engineer. So you can either see everything at the same time. For smaller projects, you might actually find that seeing just this predefined basic modeling set is just good enough. Or you can enable all tags, which actually hosts many of commands. You can see that there is quite many of them. In this case, it's smart to actually go on by different workstations. So for load workstation, you can see all the commands for loads. Many of all the components contain some additional settings. You can always find them under the symbol of 3 lines, Hamburger Menu. And for example, I can show and hide categories if I want to really see what it is about. And also maybe to improve the learnability, I actually can also here disable the default icon mode. And by that, you actually can see that I am able to actually have the input panel in different modes. Here, I can quickly collapse some of the categories. So you can see that quickly I'm able to actually get to the exact command that I require. However, for further use, I will stick to the basic modeling and all workstation because I find it most simple. This view is very beneficial for the beginning of your work, but it takes a little bit more space, as you can see. When names are shown, of course, it takes more space. So as you go along, you can actually get in a similar mode that, for example, I use here when only the icons are visible. And if more information of commands is needed, you can always find it by just waiting for 2 seconds on a command. There is also some options to change hotkeys and getting more information if there are those. So that's the input panel. And next in the line is actually the other toolbar, which is called the Process Toolbar. And it actually has this wheel shape with different workstation with an, let's say, graphical view. And the important thing is that you can, for example, see two at the same time. I think that's quite nice feature because in the old environment, you were not able to see two services at the same time. So for example, like having a look at results and having a look at steel. So this way I can just see steel check together with basic results and use them accordingly. The primary menu is just selected by click, and the secondary menu is selected by holding your control key and clicking. There is also a Hamburger menu. So there's, for example, my workstation, which is by default entirely empty, but you can fill it with whatever commands you use and to really have it personalized your way. Very important aspect, I spoke a bit about the personalization and customization. Important link with that is that all the configurations are stored right away in a specific file. And you can save this file, you can send this file to your colleague. If you customize the environment for yourself, you can just send the configuration file and he is able to use it as well. You can find it in the menu, or very simply, I just write config and you can see that there is the save and load user configuration. There is also restore whenever something gets broken and or whether you would like to restore to the factory settings. So these possibilities are here. Important aspect about the command line or the SCIA spotlight is that as we actually are using the single letter hotkeys, like I showed you, like M for mirror, B for beam, the letters you write are not directly present in the SCIA spotlight. So you need always to press space key to get the focus, and then you can just start writing. This also applies for some editing or inputting coordinates. You also need to press space before actually writing into the command line. Let's continue with something else, and those are the properties. So the property panel actually shows, and let me dock it like this. It shows the properties of selected objects. Important to note is that not all the properties are visible in the basic mode, because in some cases there is a lot of properties, like 30 or even 50 different lines, and we chose the most important ones to show them. Whenever you want to see all of them, you can just do that, and you can see, like, even for this beam, how many properties there are, and you can think yourself whether you maybe need those or not. If not, the lightweight mode is here. The important feature what the properties panel actually have is that you can not only see the properties of the selected objects like you would expect, but you can see also some associated data. So in this case, let me now disable the rendering and enable the actual hinges. You can see that in my project, of course, there are hinges. I just don't see them at this point, for example, but the members see them as associated objects. So even though I don't have my hinges selected, I'm able to change their parameters. So this actually makes it very, very interesting, because you don't have to select hinges or these associated objects at all if you want to change them. So the same applies, of course, for example, if I select these two nodes, you can see that right away I can change the support. And there are, let's say, endless possibilities. Everything what's attached is possible to be selected in this way. Furthermore, very important aspect that we felt actually required some extension is the possibility to be able to quickly select objects based on the same property, whatever that property is. In this case, there is no special button here, but you can just right click on the property. Let's say that I want to select all the beams in this project with the same length. So I just click on expand selection, and just like that, you can see all these are selected. I can also select a different object here, like this diagonal here. And you can now see that, of course, these objects differ in the length, so it's shown here as mixed. However, still I am able to expand selection by, well, the same parameter, but with a different value. But this can be used by different manners. You can, for example, see that if I select one beam, I am able to select, for example, every beam in hall 1, but I'm also able to select every beam in hall 2. And now when I do that, I'm able to, let's say, here right-click on specific cross-section and isolate the selection only based on this cross-section. So you can see that in this way, working with the actual selection from the property window was never easier. You can actually do the same thing while right-clicking on the whole group. So you can, for example, expand selection like this to select all 502 beams in this project, or if I just click Ctrl A to just select everything, I'm also able to just right-click on beams to deselect everything else. Very similar to what I showed you in the process toolbar, that if you don't like some commands, you can just drag them to remove them. Very much applies here. I can just drag things here in a trash can. It does not delete the objects, it just removes them from the selection. So you can see that this way is also a possibility how to create specific selections for future use or for immediate use. I can show you on a simple structure where I actually don't have any results, how quickly this can be used for, let's say, editing an imported DWG structure. Because while this structure is inputted, all these beams actually share the same cross-section, all the same properties. So I can just select, for example, these three, and let's say that I expand selection on that. I also expand these and also these, and now I can place them in different layer, place them with different cross-section, and hide them from sight. I can follow the same logic with anything else. So you can see that I can actually only select like 3 members here. And you can see that I'm now unable to actually select many other by the same cross-section or layer, because they essentially have the same cross-section or layer. But just like that, I am able to select all objects that I want to place in a different layer just by actually knowing what they have in common. In this case, it was the length. Let me show you a basic workflow about results and checks, because I think that that's also very important. So for this, I'm actually going to show only part of the structure. For example, you can now actually see that also not only my beams, but all different kinds of objects are actually selected. However, that doesn't need to bother me, because if I want to hide all the panels, I just expand selection and I hide them. And you can see that now I actually have the structure as I want. On the process toolbar, there is also a way how to work with the visibility. In what I just did, I actually used the hotkeys. There are predefined hotkeys Ctrl D and Ctrl E for working with the visibility. I can also, let's say, draw invisible members. So in faint color, you can now see the rest of the structure. But let's now work only with this part. The first thing that I would like to highlight is actually a possibility that is quite new, and that's the possibility of auto refresh. So imagine that you have this structure and you want maybe to investigate members one by one. You don't need to get stuck in lengthy calculation. So the auto refresh is great companion for that. So now you can see I can click on results. Okay, my selection is empty, but this way you can see that if my properties are well preset, I don't even need to care too much about them because the results are displayed right away. The same applies if I make a change here in the properties to maybe display results for different load case, the results automatically update as well. I already mentioned that, but there is the possibility of actually having results and check at the same time visible. So you don't need to click between different services. I just click here on a steel check. And of course, there is not too big utilization for self-wait, but you can see that the auto refresh works quite well here as well. Even if you would get stuck, let's say that I actually make the whole structure visible and I run with the auto refresh the result, you can see that it can take minutes, but I can always cancel the calculation and SCIA engineer is going to show you whatever was calculated till that time when the calculation was stopped. Furthermore, in the status bar, there are also some other important aspects like working with scales. You can scale the deformation of the results, or you can scale the deformation of the add data, like size of a support, or you can keep it to 1. You can change the coordinate systems and the snapping. Snapping is a very important tool while modeling, but you can also change a load case, because when you are inputting load cases, it is actually very important to be able to navigate quickly and to be able to see in which load case you are actually inputting your new load impulse. And this is actually possible here by this this combo box in the status bar. Last but not least, important to mention is that working with images and engineering report is actually also very simple. We have Workstation reports here. The first one is report. There is a list of available reports, or I will in this case create a new one, and you can see that that behaves very similar to the old environment. Here I have a context menu, or here I have the process toolbar components which actually can send images or tables into report. This way I can just right click here and I can send live image to report, which shall not recalculate. But if it wants to actually send the most up-to-date data, and now it actually can take for this particular result multiple minutes, but I'm able to send anything into engineering report. Important aspect is, or something to highlight, is that how do you actually make the results go away? Because maybe you want to have picture without results. That's very simple. I just drag them away like I would anything else, and now I can send this image also to report, and this is no longer containing any result data. It's just a plain picture. I will not talk too much about the engineering report itself, because for that we have different webinars that were also recorded in the past, and you can find them in our YouTube channel. And the behavior of engineering report is essentially as was described in these webinars. So I think this is actually getting close to everything that I wanted to share with you. Of course, I did not do any extensive modeling here, but my intention was really to show you what we did, show you some productivity tips. Let me just summarize some of them because I think that they are important to be repeated, to be remembered. So we worked on environment, and we make sure that as much things as possible are edited on the go. So if you want to change a hotkey, you just click here. So for 3D deformation, maybe I can change it to 3. If you want to change your toolbars, that's also very simple. You just drag things there from wherever it's possible. So that's something that you can do very, very quickly. We still have the possibility to work in services or workstations. So both the process toolbar and the input panel actually follow the logic for structural engineer, then where you start with the modeling and continue with loading, but you can get back or to different workstation at any time, or as well as in the input panel and in the process toolbar, you can have actually multiple open at the same time. I didn't mention that, but here I actually select with holding my control key, and multiple different services at the same time are available. For the properties panel, the most important aspect is that we are able to hide by default most of the least used attributes of every member, but we are at the same time able to see in the properties also the associated objects. Like I was able to see hinges while having beams selected. Also, the property panel features quite advanced tools to manipulate with selection, to select, deselect, or isolate selection based on different properties. And the last but not least, the status bar is a great way to have handy the most used important settings. The new one is the auto refresh, but there's also the result log or the modes for grids. And the last component that I want to just summarize is the SCIA spotlight, with where you can just write 2 letters to get search of the relevant objects that are also sorted in a specific form so you can see on the top the thing that you are mostly like to use rather than by some alphabetical order. So this is what I wanted to show you today.
Hvala puno našim predavačima. Evo, ponedjeljak je bio možda malo duži, ali ponedjeljak je, imate dovoljno snage, odmorili ste se, nadam se, preko vikenda. I pozivam vas eto sutra na novo druženje gdje nam dolaze 2 projektanata iz naših dragih firmi korisnika. Lijepi pozdrav!